Welcome to the Franklin Method Fellowship. I'm your co-host Solange Ross, and I'm joined by my colleague Deborah Chassie. We are physical therapists specializing in the pelvic floor. In this podcast, we share our passion for the Franklin Method, an evidence-based therapeutic approach using mental imagery, movement, and awareness to improve posture, the way you move and feel, and overall well-being. We integrate the Franklin Method into functional everyday movements, all forms of exercise, and our physical therapy practices. We also share a love for talking about the pelvic floor. We hope to inspire you to move better and feel better in your body. Always check with your doctor before beginning an exercise program. This podcast is not intended to be used as medical advice. Let's grab your Franklin Method balls and bands. Enjoy the show. Welcome, everyone. We are in episode 13 of the Franklin Method Fellowship. I am Solange Ross, and I'm joined by my colleague, Deborah Chassie. And in today's episode, episode 13, we are looking at the knee joint. And I am so excited to look at the knee joint. The knee joint is actually the largest joint in the body, which is pretty cool. And let's just get right into it. So what do we hear people say when they talk about their knees?
People will say things like, oh, I had an ACL repair or a PCL repair. Or how about a meniscus tear?
Yeah, there's some kind of ailment, or my knees are stiff, my knees are achy, or I feel it in my knees, right?
Right. Or that my knees are getting weak, right?
We don't usually hear people walking around and saying, my knees feel great.
That's true.
I got this spring in my step. My knees feel great. They're so light and stable and energetic today, right?
Yeah.
We don't hear anything like that. And
and a lot of people talk about knee replacements and patellofemoral syndrome. Another thing is arthritis. My knees are hurting because I have arthritis.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different diagnoses that people might have. And in general, people talk negatively about their knees. We have an interesting statistic here about surgeries. So in the US, there were 720,000 knee replacements done compared to 330,000 hip replacements in 2021. So that's a lot of surgeries on the knee, right?
That is, yeah. Yeah, that's more than double. Yeah. When I was a fairly new physical therapist, I would go to people's homes to do treatment with them. And it seemed like knee surgeries were the most difficult for people to recover.
Yeah, and also in talking about the recovery, a lot of the protocols that we learn about for the knee involve different forms of muscle strengthening. So stuff that involves a quad set or terminal knee extension or a straight leg raise. And what I love about the Franklin Method approach is that we are going to look at the whole chain. So we're going to look at from the hip to the knee down to the foot. So we're not just staying isolated around the knee, because really we're going to look and see how it's stuff that comes from above and below, and the knee is really caught in between. And so sometimes is reacting to the forces from the ground up and then from the upper body down. Yeah. So,
and I think that's really important.
And let's just talk about what people feel with just different activities, what kind of limits them, like how they feel stuff in their knees. So what do you hear from patients when they have knee issues?
Well, some of them will say repetitive activities like running. Running is a big one. Walking up a hill, walking down a hill, walking up and down stairs. And you have to realize when you're walking down a hill that your knee is basically sliding forward. And so it's a ligament that's in between them that has to catch it from sliding forward and sliding off track. And say somebody wants to bend down and pick something up off the ground and they're squatting down, they may have trouble getting up because they don't have the muscular strength in their knees. That's another big one.
And I like that you're mentioning just how the going down the stairs, because what you see when people have knee issues is they will then start to compensate and do all sorts of things with their hip or turn to the side to really offset the force going through the knee. And what does that then do? All of those compensations,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That
Yeah,
leads
that's
to
difficult.
more issues. Like now something with the knee becomes something with the hip and the lower back, or something with the foot. So
Yeah,
we're really going to look here how to restore the mechanics of the whole lower leg to
yeah,
move better and feel better with movement, um, like what we've just described.
yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, I keep thinking there's two things that occur for me. One is I went to Cinque Terre in Italy, and have you been there where there's tons of stairs going up the hill? And it just goes on and on and on and on. And I felt like I was pretty strong when I was climbing them, but there's five. So Cinque is five. There's five cities that you go to in tour. And by the time I get to the last one, it's like too many stairs. And I was feeling it after that. I was really sore from climbing so many stairs right in a row.
Mm.
Yeah. And then we have when I go on my walk to the beach, there's a steep, steep hill and it's pretty long. And so I just know when I'm going down that hill, I do my bone rhythms, which we'll be talking about. And so I imagine what the knee is doing, as I'm bending my knee, and it basically picture the knee is rolling forward, sliding back and spinning. And I say that to myself as I'm going down the hill, and it really helps.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to give you all just an opportunity for different images that you can use to make your knees feel better. And let's begin by just checking in. So let's stand up, and for 1 minute, we're going to notice our knees. Let's check in and we'll notice our knees. So for 1 minute, we're going to sense and feel our body, noticing posture, levels of tension. 3, 2, 1, and go. And welcome back. And let's also, before we share about our check-ins, just bend and stretch our legs, focusing on the knees, and notice what that feels like. So, Deborah, how was your check-in?
Well, the knees felt fine. So I would say average. But I did notice that I was putting all of my weight into my right side. Not, I mean, I did notice that I was putting my weight into my left side. And it's just subtle because when you're focusing, you can really tell the difference. And so I let that sit there for a while just so I would know what it felt like. And then I focused on, well, let's share it so that I'm putting weight into both sides. And that's actually more comfortable, easier on my posture. How
Oh,
about you? What
good.
did you notice?
So when I was focusing on the knees, I could feel my foot moving and then my hip moving. So I was sort of feeling the knees in between these two long levers, which was kind of interesting because I was seeing how, yeah, they really are reacting to what's going on above and below. So I was noticing the sway and how my knees felt somewhat stable, but also how they were moving in response to the foot and the sway of the hips.
Mm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So why don't we grab our balls and let's do some tapping just to wake up our knees. Well, let's start tapping on our abdomen. So we'll tap up the right and down the left. You can use one or two balls, or you could use your hands like a fist shape. And then we'll choose one leg to tap down the leg. And I'm going to choose my right leg. And you just tap all around. Tap especially on the knee. And I like to tap behind the knee. And I'm going to even get some of the foot. And up thigh and behind the leg. Get the buttock a little bit. So this is tapping increases proprioception, which increases our body awareness of our limb in space. And it's amazing what it does because now if we just stop and check to see how we feel, and incidentally, I ended up tapping the leg that I wasn't putting weight on. And now I'm really noticing my weight on that leg without even having to intentionally think about it.
Mm.
How does that feel for you after doing the one
I,
side? You did your right side too.
my right side just feels more alive. It feels a
Mm-hmm.
little tingly, and it actually feels like it occupies more space than the left side.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, I can also feel my shoulder is a little bit more back and down and dropped. So I like that.
Nice. Let's check our shoulders after doing one side. Check the shoulder on the side you did compared to the other side. Oh yeah, big difference. What about a leg kick? Check the hamstrings. Mm. Yeah, I can feel a big difference with that too. How about balance? Oh, I like the way my balance feels on that side compared to the other side. Not as great. So let's make it better and go ahead and tap the other side. Yeah, there's sensory organs that are under our skin, and these sensory organs help to wake up the proprioceptors when we're doing tapping, brushing, shaking. All of that is good to increase proprioception. And it also stimulates the lymphatic vessels. So it increases lymph transport.
So it's so simple to do this tapping. So we should certainly all be doing it before we go for a walk, a little bit of tapping when we get up out of bed, just intersperse some tapping throughout our day. Wake up these sensory organs.
And as you're tapping, you could just do a little bit of knee flexion and extension.
Yes, I found myself naturally moving as I was doing the tapping.
Yeah.
And it feels really good to me just to tap all around the knee, like below the kneecap, on the sides of the kneecap, inside, outside, back of the knee.
And when we're tapping the front and the back of the knee, I like to picture those ligaments that are in there supporting our leg from sliding forward or sliding back too far. And then the side of the knee where it protects the knee, the ligaments protects the knee from side shifting. Isn't it amazing? All of the support we have there. Oh, that feels so
Yes.
good. Just gonna stand and notice posture. Breathing. Oh, breathing's easier. And it's not like I had difficulty breathing prior to this. It's just more noticeable.
I feel more lifted in my chest. Like I really have nice support in both
Yeah.
legs after doing that tapping.
I feel lifted in my neck. I must look taller right now. And what about range of motion? How does that feel for you, Solange?
Good. Shoulders feel better.
And then hamstrings. Ooh, big difference. I love that.
A little bit
And
of
balance,
tapping. A little bit of tapping goes a long way.
doesn't it? And balance, so much more stable. So can you all imagine that if you do some tapping before you say go for a walk or do some exercise, how it will improve the efficiency of the movement when you're doing it?
Certainly, right? If we noticed a better swing of the leg, right, that's going to translate into more freedom when you're taking your steps.
Yeah,
Right? More freedom in the hamstrings.
right.
Well, let's take a look at our knee joint. And before we look a little bit more at the structure, I'm going to give you a little demo. So this is my femur, and we're going to have to use our imagination here because I have a humerus, but we're going to imagine that this humerus is going to be our tibia. So we have the upper leg bone and the lower leg bone. And in between here is our knee joint. And so our knee joint is really stuck in between these two long levers. And so if I push from either end, holding at the far end of these bones with a lot of force, can you see what can happen? So the bones can shift. But if I now take my force and I bring it closer to the joint and push, then it's much more stable. So, how does the knee deal with these, like the challenge of all these forces coming in and dealing with forces, yet having stability? So, why don't we take a look at the structure of the knee joint and then we'll see how that answers that question.
Yeah, and I do want to say too, even though this is articulated, which means they're together, and I push from the ends this way, it's actually more difficult than to come closer and push. And so if we look at the structure of the knee, notice that there's two rounded edges or there's two rounded ends here. And you can even see from looking at this one's actually a little bit bigger compared to this one. And look at the bottom here. So this is convex. If you could imagine, say, two tire hats right here, because I like to think of tires because it's rolling, or bicycle wheels, right? Because it does some rolling. And then right here on the tibia is a smooth surface, and the meniscus sits right in here. So these two articular surfaces, they're going to actually connect with the tibia, like so. And there's a meniscus that sits right here. A lot of people talk about a meniscus tear, and they had to have that repaired. And so this is where the meniscus is. And we want the connection between both of them to be healthy. When the condyles roll onto the meniscus, it gives it some cushioning so that it better supports the knee stability.
Yeah, and those two condyles fit nicely into those two sockets on the tibia, with the meniscus being the cushioning. So those are some of the things that give the knee its stability, even though it's dealing with these large forces. And the other things that help are it's surrounded by strong muscles and ligaments. And we can take a look at a picture of those ligaments. So I'll share my screen. So here we're looking at the front and back of the knee joint. So here we can see the articular surface of the condyles and the meniscus sitting on top of the tibia. And then we can see in the middle the anterior and cruciate ligament and the posterior cruciate ligament. And on the sides, the medial and lateral collateral ligaments. And then here is just a view from the back below. We can really get a good view because we're looking from the back of the posterior cruciate ligament. And then again, the medial and lateral collateral ligaments. And
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And one other image just to show how stable the knee is with all these ligamentous structures. If you take a look here, you can just see it's basically surrounded by ligaments, this joint capsule. And we can see ligaments coming from the quadricep muscles on the thigh, going into the patella, and then the patella into the tibia. So this provides really such a strong and stable structure for the knee. Did you want to add anything, Deborah?
I just think it's amazing, all of the ligaments that are surrounding the knee. And I'm thinking too, when we're doing some exercises, walking, running, walking up and down stairs, to just really think about how beautifully created that is with all of the ligamentous support. And then, of course, we have the muscles that are layered, many layers of muscles on top of it.
Absolutely. And the last thing adding to that gives it this stability, even though it is dealing with all these forces, is, as you mentioned before, the bone rhythms, which is the natural movement in the knee, the way it moves in 3 dimensions, which we're going to look at a little bit later. And that provides safe and efficient movement for the knee.
So the knee is very stable and it's flexible. And the interesting thing, the knee can flex and extend, which we all know, right? There's knee extension, knee flexion, back to extension again. And also when you're in sitting, so this would be a seated posture, that the knee can actually rotate. So it can have some slight rotation in this direction.
And that is a really important motion that we should all try. And that's something that maybe a lot of us have never even experienced what that feels like before. So let's all come into a sitting position so that we can get our knee at 90 degrees of flexion. And then we're going to experience that motion.
Here I have my heel on the floor. My foot is on the ground. And I'm going to put a little weight or just stabilize my femur, the top leg bone, and come down to the lower leg bone, which is the tibia, and rotate it in and out. So at 90 degrees, your tibia can rotate in and out.
It's really a small motion, but it's a very important motion.
Be interesting to see what that feels like when we stand up. Let's go ahead and stand up and just see what it feels like on one leg. Oh, I can feel it all the way into my pelvis. More support.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I definitely feel that support. I also feel like I have a stronger connection in my big toe to the ground.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I feel like my weight on the right side is a little bit more like forward and centered over the ankle, which feels good.
The other side. So heel under the knee and one hand on the femur, the top leg bone, and the other hand on the tibia, the lower leg bone, and just rotating it in and out. It was interesting what you said about the toe, because then I paid attention to my toe and I felt like there was more of a lift in my arch.
Okay. And as we're doing this motion, one thing to notice, because my foot is also moving when I'm doing it, is that I'm not just compensating with the foot, that I'm really feeling that tibia, the lower leg bone, rotate out a little bit and then rotate in. And if you really have your hands along the shaft, and you can feel that because it's pretty bony and it sticks out in the lower leg, you'll feel that movement out and in. And you'll notice if you're trying to do too much with your foot, because the muscles of your foot will be firing and you'll feel a sensation there.
I'm noticing after I stopped that my sitting posture feels better. Can you imagine sitting at a desk all day and nobody will notice that you just take time to rotate your tibia and then notice better support in your posture? But let's stand up and see how that feels.
I feel the same thing where my foot really feels more grounded. The toes feel more spread out.
And I feel it in my abdomen. My muscles feel more toned. Oh, so much for needing to do sit-ups, huh?
And I love that that was just such a simple movement and that really gave some really nice effect.
It was, I know.
So we just looked at how the knee joint was this structure of the two condyles, and then how on the tibial plateau, there are these two sockets within which the meniscus fill out. So in the next exercise that we're going to do, we're going to stand up and we're just going to notice these points of support in standing.
And I'm going to show you too what I did to my knee. I don't know if you can see it good enough, but I'm going to get up real close. And what I did is I put two blue dots right where the condyles were on each leg. This one I made further out. See there and there. And I put this one closer together so you can see it. So as we stand up and notice our condyles, think about where they're at. So that's what these dots are for, just to show you where the condyles are at.
That's great. And you can also feel that. Let's just take a moment before, if we feel the knee, we can really just feel, if we're feeling along the inside and outside, they really, really stick out. So you can feel those big condyles sticking out. And then as you move your fingers down a little bit, you can feel what feels like a joint space. And then if you go a little bit lower, then it feels bony again. And now you're on the tibia. So
That's great for everyone to be able to feel this.
Yeah. And let's just do the same thing on the other side because we don't want the other side to miss out. So as you run your fingers down the thigh, we'll just feel those condyles. And as I'm doing this, it just feels so comforting to me. It really feels like my knee is thanking me for just giving it some attention. So we'll feel the condyles, and then there's what feels like a joint space, which doesn't feel bony anymore. It feels more of like a squishiness to it, little softer texture. And then if you go down a little bit more, then you're on bone again.
You know, when people have arthritis, something that they tend to do is rub their knees, don't they? Like, oh, my knees. And they rub them, and just to help them feel a little bit warm and connected and relaxed.
I like doing this just in general. It feels nice, just very comforting.
Mm-hmm.
But you might instinctively find yourself doing that, rubbing your knees, and just go with it.
Yeah.
Let's come up into standing and let's see if we can sense in our knees that we have not just one point of support in each leg from just the femur connecting to the tibia, but there's these two condyles resting on the two sockets of the tibia. And let's notice that that gives us a sense of stability. And we can even bend and stretch our legs, sensing 2 points of contact from each condyle and 2 points of support in the socket on the tibia. And notice if you sense that one side feels different than the other. Or does one of the condyles feel like it has more weight on it than the other? You want these 2 points of support to imagine them balanced.
Interesting, because I didn't realize that the inside of this knee, felt more restrictive compared to the other.
Mm.
And by focusing in on those 2 points for each leg of support, so basically we have 4 points of support, that it gives a different sensation compared to, let's say, the hip. It really only has 2 points of support.
And I'm also playing with, because I notice that when I bend my knees, I have a little bit more awareness on the inner condyle. So I'm playing with the idea of more support on the outer. And when I do that, I feel like I'm getting more of a lift in my arch. So I can feel more of a support from my foot.
And I'm feeling more weight into the lateral sides of my feet, which will increase the arch.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how we can play with where we're feeling the support, what our preferred pattern is, and how we can shift that around using imagery so that we get more variation for our knees and more options. we mentioned the bone rhythms a couple times. So for the next exercise, let's actually take a look at the bones and really explore what these bone rhythms are and how they can help improve our movement.
Let's take a look at the knee. And I want you to notice on the condyle, this is the lateral outside of the knee condyle, and it has a spiraling type of formation. And I like to think of a shell and how the shell has many spirals to it. And so if you picture that on the knee, it's going to help us understand some of the bone rhythms. Here you have the knee in extension. And so when you flex the knee, it actually is doing several things, but one of the things it's doing is it's rolling back. You see how the femur rolls back. And when it rolls back, it also slides, slides forward. And I can't make it do that on here, but if you can picture it just slightly sliding forward, and then it has a spin to it because of that cell-like spiraling here. And then when you go...
We also know that it's got to slide forward because when we bend our knees, the femur doesn't just fall off of the tibial plateau, right?
Right.
If there wasn't a slide to it, it would continue to roll back off the plateau. So that slide to it keeps it in contact with the tibia and also the spinning in place. And those three motions are happening at the same time. It's not a roll first, then a slide and a spin. They're actually all occurring together. Though for us to embody it, we may first say roll back, slide forward, and spin. But I want you all to get the idea that they're happening all three movements at once.
Yes, thank you for explaining that more clearly. When you bring the knee into extension, the femur is rolling forward. You can actually see it roll forward and sliding back and spinning. And as Solange had mentioned, that it is all happening simultaneously. And so we could actually do that with our hands.
Yeah.
So if we hold our palm up, and this will be our tibia, and this is my femur. And so as you go to flex, so we're going to bring it into flexion like this, then the femur is rolling back, sliding forward, and spinning. And I love this for going up and down stairs or going down that big hill that I go up and down. And then as you go into extension, it's rolling forward, sliding back, and spinning. Let's do that a few times with our hands. So roll back.
Should we stand up and put it into our body while we bend our knee?
And we could do it with our hands at the same time.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea. So we're going to go ahead and practice the bone rhythms with our knees. And I'm going to focus on my right side first. So I'll just choose which side you want to focus on first. And I always choose the side that I think might have more restriction. So put your palm out and your hand on top. The palm is the tibia. Imagine the two surfaces here receiving the two condyles from above on the femur. And as you flex, you're going to roll back, slide forward, and spin. And as you extend, you're going to roll forward, slide back, and spin. And flex, roll back, slide forward, and spin. And extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. And flex, roll back, slide forward, and spin. And extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. And this time I'm going to do it real slow. We're going to flex, so the tibia rolls back.
The femur.
Slide the femur. As we flex, the femur rolls back, slides forward, and spins. And as we extend, the femur rolls forward, slides back, and spins. And now let's just notice.
there's one other way that we can, before we notice, we can also do that if we take our hands and we make fists and we put them on either side of our knee. And when we bend our knee, we can roll our fists back, then slide them forward and spin. So we're touching our knee. And then as we stretch the leg, roll forward, slide back, and spin. So let's do that a couple more times. Bend, roll back, slide forward, and spin. Stretch the leg, roll forward, slide back, and spin. And I'm pushing my hands right up on either side of the condyles, really giving some nice input into my knee. Flexing, roll back, slide forward, and spin. Extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. And let's notice.
I'm noticing my posture feels really good, especially in the lumbar spine.
I actually feel that too, like nice support in my back. And let's go ahead and just bend both knees and just notice how smooth that motion is on the right and left. I feel
buttery.
like I have more smooth and more motion on the right side in the ankle as well as the knee.
Feels very buttery.
I like that, buttery.
Yeah. Well, shall we do the other side?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go ahead and we'll start with using our hand, and then I'm going to have you follow up with the way that you did it with the hands on the knees. As we flex, your femur is going to roll back, slide forward, and bend. And as you extend, the femur is going to roll forward, slide back, and bend. And again, flex, roll back, slide forward, and spin. And extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. And one more time, roll back, slide forward, and spin. And roll forward, slide back, and spin. And Solange, I would love for you to do the one with your hands on the knee.
Yeah, so we can find our condyles on either side, put our fists there, and then we're going to flex, the condyles roll back, slide forward, and spin, and extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. Flex, roll back, slide forward, and spin. Extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. Flex, roll back, slide forward, and spin. Extend, roll forward, slide back, and spin. And then we'll notice. Go ahead and bend your knees. Notice.
Feels like I can bend more too, like I have more flexibility in my muscles.
Yes. And I feel that same support in my back, which feels nice. My ankles feel flexible.
My lower ribs feel lifted.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I thought you might.
And notice what you all feel at home practicing along with us. Take a moment just to appreciate all the changes up and down that you got from this embodiment.
Breathing feels fuller into my lungs and into my thorax.
I also feel calm.
You know, something that we often hear in, say, an exercise class where they're trying to get you to produce a more efficient movement, and they'll give you cues like grip your butt or lift your arches? Or what are some of the other ones that you hear, Solange?
Yeah, lift your kneecaps.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. So now I'm doing all of that and I feel so rigid. Try walking
Yeah.
with your arches lifted, your kneecaps lifted, and your butt gripped. I can
Yeah.
barely walk.
Or
That's so uncomfortable.
even the idea, pull your belly button to your spine and
Mm,
then try to bend your knees and feel the difference in the
right.
movement.
Oh, my goodness.
I feel much less freedom of movement.
And so now, if we let all of that go and focus on our knees and the condyles rolling and sliding and spinning and just flex, and look at how much movement I have
I
in
also can
comparison.
feel, it also feels to me when I let all of that go that I'm counterbalancing and getting movement throughout my whole body. So I can feel like I have more options available to me. When I have that tone in my abdominals, then I kind of feel like I'm bending with a resistance in my legs. Like it feels harder to bend and it feels like something that I have to work through. So
I hear what you're saying on that.
we want
Yeah,
movement to be more efficient and easier on our body, not the opposite.
that's right.
We just looked at the bone rhythms of the knee, and now we're going to bring that into the whole lower leg. So we're going to take a look at what happens with the femur, what happens with the tibia, and then connect it into our feet. So let's place our hands on our femur close to the knee joint. So we'll feel just above the condyles. And we're going to bend and stretch our legs. And I want you to notice, do you feel a rotation out or a rotation in of the
So when
bones?
I flex my knees, I feel the femurs rotating out. And when I extend, I feel them rotating back in.
Yes. So see if you can sense that there's a rotation out as you flex and an in as you stretch.
And I have an arrow on my leg to show that. I'm going to bring my leg closer. And here's an arrow. Can you see my arrow? So that's the one rotating out. And then I have another arrow for the lower leg bone, the tibia, rotating in. And you'll be able to see it too because I have this marking. I put some kinesio tape on the femur and on the tibia so that you could notice that as we do it, that the femur is rotating out when we flex our knees.
So we're going to flex and extend. You showed us how the femur and the tibia were marked on your legs. So when we flex, you can sense that rotation out and rotating in as you extend. And then if we place our hands now on our on our tibia, so we're going to now move our hands from our thighs down to our tibia, and we can feel where on our shins it's bony and it sticks out. And we'll flex and extend and see what we sense here.
And you can feel it going in
So
when
the
you
tibia
flex.
goes in as we flex and out as we extend. So what we can do with our hand placement is we can bend our knees and slide our hands out on the thighs and then in on the tibia. And then as we stretch, slide it out and then in on the thighs. So flexing, femur out, tibia in, extending tibia out, femur in. Flex, femur out, tibia in, extend, tibia out, femur in. Flex, femur out, tibia in, and extend, tibia out, femur in. Once more, flex, femur out, tibia in, extend, tibia out, femur in. And let's notice our posture. I feel nice and lifted from that exercise.
I know, it feels great. I remember the first time I did this one in our training class. Oh, I couldn't believe the difference in my posture, and I'm feeling that all over again. Just how strong my spine feels and lifted in my spine. I even feel my lower ribs are lifted, giving me more space.
I even feel like my legs, the muscles in my legs feel strong. Like I've done some sort of exercise to like plump up the muscles, which is really cool because all I really did was just focus on the natural movement within the joints. It's not like I was trying to like squeeze or do anything. You know, we hear these cues in fitness classes, squeeze your glutes, squeeze your thighs. All I was doing was just following a sensation in the bones
Yeah,
and letting the muscles work as they should around that.
that's awesome. I love that. I love it that you explain it that way, looking at the function of the whole knee area and that it's happening naturally together as we focus on the sensation that we're feeling.
Yeah, because we're all about creating longevity in the body. And
Absolutely.
that's the way that we do it, by not expending energy where we don't need it.
And we're all aging. So you're younger than I am, I'm older than you, but we're both on the path of aging and we need to be able to protect our joints. And this gives us such a great avenue to be able to protect our joints, especially the largest joint in our body.
Absolutely. And I love these exercises. It really feels like reverse aging to me.
Doesn't
And
it? I know.
and Eric Franklin has a beautiful book called Grow Younger Daily. And there
Mm.
are really beautiful exercises in that book that help with the reverse aging process. Really
You know
highly
that
recommend it.
that's why I took Franklin Method in the first place. I mean, I know I needed it for my patients so I could give them functional activities to do after their hands-on treatment. But the other reason I did it was for myself, so that I could see early on that wow, this will be great for aging.
Yeah.
And I've really been experiencing the benefits of that and love it.
It really is such a kind and loving approach to the body. And there really is no better gift to oneself to be more connected. And that really is what Franklin Method gives.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's connect now this bone rhythm down into our feet. So we just experienced how the femur goes out, the tibia goes in, and we're going down the lower leg. So what do we think might happen with our feet? So let's take a moment and let's just bend our knees and stretch our legs and see what we can sense might happen in our feet. So if we've got this femur out, tibia in, what would be the natural progression for our
And then
feet?
our feet should go out.
Yes. So let's add that in of bending and femur out, tibia in, feet spreading out. And then stretching the legs, feet in, tibia out, femur in. So we're going to do this hand motion. So if you're having trouble reaching down your thighs, you can always just rotate your hands just in front of you in space and do like an out, in, out. So you're kind of modeling it and stretching your hands out. And then an in, out, in as you stretch your legs and they come back in. Or you can do sliding your hands down and then up, whatever's more comfortable for you. So let's bend the knees and femur out, tibia in, foot out. Stretch the legs, foot in, tibia out, femur in. Bend the legs, femur out, tibia in, foot spreading out. Stretch the legs, foot in, tibia out, femur in. And again, femur out, tibia in, foot spreads out. Foot in, tibia out, femur in. Bend the legs, femur out, tibia in, foot spreads out. Stretch the legs, foot in, tibia out, femur in. Last time, flex, tibia out, flex, femur out, tibia in, foot spreads out. Stretch the legs, foot in, tibia out, femur in. And notice.
And the core feels amazing.
It really does connect to the core.
My lower ribs feel so lifted. Isn't that going to help with breath and neck alignment and head balancing? Glutes feel strong and powerful.
Yeah. I do feel powerful as if I've lifted some weights.
Yeah.
And I really encourage you to integrate this into your weight practice. So whatever it is, like if you're doing a weighted squat, to think about these bone rhythms happening as you're doing your squatting, bending the legs and stretching the legs. And take note if you are working with a trainer, what the cues are that your trainer is giving to you, because your trainer may be saying things like, before you begin, make sure that you engage your core. And then the question would be, why do I need that? Why wouldn't I let my core respond to the weight that I'm lifting and work so that my nervous system can determine exactly how much my muscles need to work? So keep thinking about that when you go back to your exercise and your routines.
I love that you say that. And I'm thinking the exercise that I do the most that involves squatting is on the power plate. So I'm holding on and I'm going down and up. And so what I want to do is incorporate that, the bone rhythms, into the power plate. Really, it's just like a full body spiraling. Right now, we're getting the lower half of our body spiraling as we do this movement.
It feels so good and strong and supported. Let's take a moment and notice our knees.
I feel a better connection with the 4 points. And then the 2 points in our pelvis and our hips.
I feel like I have a better distribution of weight on the condyles, where when I had first checked in, I felt like there was more weight on the inside, and now the weight feels more balanced. So I'm really feeling those 4 points of contact.
And I'm feeling a connection with the lateral ligaments, which tells me that I'm really feeling the 2 end points of the condyles. Yeah, and especially in the beginning, I was feeling more weight onto the left side, but now I feel more of a balance between the 2 legs. and a nice lift here, kind of like a V shape into my abdomen, into the abdominal muscle.
I can feel that V shape.
Really?
These are such great changes that we're noticing from really a simple and mindful practice. I love it.
Awesome.
Well, I think that wraps it up for today. Is there anything else that we want to share?
No, I think we covered a lot, and I'm just going to walk away with the spiraling in my mind and really enjoy that, embody it throughout my day. Looking
Beautiful.
forward to, yeah, just really feeling that as I move about. You know what I love about these practices too is that each thing that we talk about, then I take it to whatever activities I'm doing during the week or when I'm working with patients and I give them some of these movements to do to help improve whatever it is that we're working on for them. And I just love how we can incorporate it into our lives. And that's what I encourage all of you to do too, is to be able to look at how to actually incorporate that. And that's why we're doing this, is so that we can share how to embody that in your life as well as everything that you're doing and improving your body function and efficiency.
Such a beautiful message. Well, it was great to practice with all of you. And any ideas for next time, what our topic should be?
I haven't thought much about that. Have you?
Well, it's a surprise then. So
Right. Well, we'll come up with something that's going to be worth your while to listen to for sure.
great to see you all. Enjoy your healthy, happy knees, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we would greatly appreciate it if you would leave us a review. You can also become a patron of the podcast. Join our patron program to get access to movement practices from each episode, bonus episodes, and Q&As where we answer any questions you have about the practices. We look forward to practicing with you and continuing to share our passion. As we say in the Franklin Method, better information leads to better navigation. Keep practicing, and we'll see you next time.